Hey, welcome back to another tutorial. I've had a few questions about long-form video, so I figured I'd share one of my own workflows. Technically, it's a dual workflow, because I like to stay hands-on and not leave everything to AI. Trust me, that little extra effort really boosts your quality. Alright, let's dive into the use case for this workflow. What we're building is an automation to create these types of videos. It can be in any niche, not just children's stories. I just happen to use that as an example because it's a really popular niche right
Emerald,
now.
the little green bee. Once upon a time, in a meadow bursting with colourful flowers, lived a busy clan of bees. They zipped and zoomed through the air, collecting nectar and making honey. Every bee in the meadow had the same black and yellow stripes, round fuzzy bodies, and short.
Alright, looking at the stats, you can see this video has been up for 4 months and it's still gaining traction. It's currently trending upward, pulling in about 19.6 views per hour. The channel has 15,000 subscribers, yet the video has already hit 170,000 views. And get this, they've only uploaded 32 videos, and the channel started in September last year, so not even a year old. Definitely something worth exploring if you're thinking about starting an educational or story-based channel. Here you can see we've got 2 distinct workflows. You could link everything together and even run it on a schedule to make the whole process hands-off. But personally, I like to stay involved to keep the quality high. We're not here to pump out junk. We want to create something solid. The goal is to build a sustainable business, not just chase quick wins. Alright, so I'm going to connect the manual trigger to the first node, which is a set node. This is basically where I paste in my story, the one I generate using ChatGPT or another language model. I also define the art style I want for the images and give the story a title. For this example, it's going to be a story about the monkey and the crocodile. Okay, so I like to start by going to GPT and asking it for a list of 5 well-known stories that have a lesson. Something like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, for example. Once it gives me the list, I pick one and then ask it to generate a version of that story tailored to my desired length, say about 5 minutes when narrated. After that, I spend some time refining it. I edit, tweak, and add my own twist until the story feels just right, exactly how I want it to be. Then I copy that story and head over to my set node, where I paste it into the story section right here. Next, I decide on the art style I want. This is where the magic happens. Alright, so when we kick off the workflow, here's what happens behind the scenes. First, it saves our story to the database. Nice and tidy. Then it calls in an agent to break that story down into individual scenes, because nobody wants a wall of text, right? Next, it splits out those scenes and saves each one as its own row in the database. From there, it gets creative and generates an image for every single scene, basically turning your story into a visual feast. Those images get saved to the database too. But we're not done yet. It takes the dialogue from each scene and sends it off to GPT text-to-speech to create audio tracks. Once those are ready, it downloads everything to your Google Drive, and then, you guessed it, pulls those audio files right back into our database. It's like having your own personal production assistant that never takes a coffee break. Okay, now let's jump over to our Airtable database where the magic is organized. We've got a nice, clean setup with 2 tables, stories, and scenes. In the Stories table, you can see our freshly created story sitting there marked as In Progress. When we hop over to the Scenes table, we'll find our story has been chopped up into 5 perfect scenes, each with its own dialogue and custom image. Let me show you. If I open this one up, boom. There's a beautiful image of our first scene, and if I click on the audio file, there's our crisp audio track, ready to go. There are some tutorials online showing you can animate each of these images, and I've actually tried that approach before. But here's what I discovered. There's really no difference in views and engagement between animated and still clips. Plot twist, right? What I've found is that engagement with these stories is actually better when you let the story do the talking. Sometimes less is more, and unnecessary animation can actually pull attention away from what really matters, the narrative itself. Your audience is there for the story, not the fancy effects. Now, to put it all together, I'm going to unplug the manual trigger from this workflow and connect it to this one instead. Think of it as switching tracks on our automation train. When I kick this off, it fetches all our scenes along with their artifacts, the images and audio files we just created. Then it sends everything off to our own private, community-specific endpoint to work its magic and stitch it all together. Once that's done, it drops the final video right back into our story table in the database. It's like having a personal video editor that works at lightning speed and never complains about overtime.
Long ago, along a serene riverbank, a monkey made his home in a towering fig tree that provided juicy fruit year-round. One sweltering day, a crocodile drifted up to rest beneath the leafy canopy. The monkey, noticing the panting reptile, offered him a sweet fig. The crocodile relished the treat and returned each day, eagerly anticipating the monkey's kindness. Their connection grew with every shared fig. The monkey high in the tree and the crocodile.
There's another reason why I split the workflow into two parts. The bottom section that handles the final video assembly can be swapped out for something else if needed. A lot of those online tutorials use the Creator-Made API to handle all this stitching together, and while it's a solid service, it's a bit pricey for my taste. So I created a custom OpenAPI endpoint specifically for our community. Think of it as our own little video production secret sauce. If you want to use it, just shoot me an email and I'll hook you up with the API key, but only if you're part of our community. Otherwise, it's not available. Exclusive club and all that. As our community grows, I'll keep expanding this API with more functionality so we can all save a bunch of money instead of paying those premium prices. Because who doesn't like keeping more cash in their pocket, right? Okay, let's break down what's happening under the hood here. In the first node, we take our story and save it to the story database with the status set to do, basically putting it in the queue. Next, we inject that story into our user prompt, and in the system prompt, we tell our agent exactly what we want. Split this story into scenes and create a unique image prompt for each one. The output gives us both the dialogue and the image prompt for every scene. This produces a nice list of scenes and prompts, but we need to split them out into individual scenes so we can process them one at a time. No assembly line bottlenecks here. Each scene then gets stored in our database in the scenes table. I prefer this approach because it saves our progress as we go. If something breaks, and let's face it, it probably will at some point, we don't have to start from scratch. Our images and dialogue are safely tucked away. After that, we send each image prompt off to replicate using one of the Flux models, though you can swap this out for any model you prefer. Since it takes some time for images to render, I built in a 20-second wait. We're processing 6 images at once here, so we want to give them enough breathing room to finish. Once they're done, I fetch them and pop them into the database. Next up, we take the dialogue from each scene and send it off to OpenAI for text-to-speech generation. Unlike the images, this endpoint returns immediately and waits for results, so no custom waiting required. Pretty convenient. Here's where it gets a bit tricky though. When these audio files come back, Airtable can't take them directly. It needs a URL. So we save them to Google Drive, share those files publicly so we can grab them, and then pull them into our Airtable database. It's like a digital relay race, but everyone gets to the finish line. In our second workflow, we start by fetching all the scenes from our database. Then we combine them into one big happy object so we can process everything together in the next step. That next step is our code node, which basically acts like a translator. It prepares everything in a format that our endpoint can actually understand. We're talking a clean list of all the images and all the dialogue, perfectly organized. Then comes the fun part. We call our brand new RoboJoule API and pass it that nicely formatted object we just created. From there, we enter a loop where we keep checking the status like an impatient kid asking, "Are we there yet?" until the API tells us it's finally complete. Once we get the green light, we download the finished video from the provided URL and save it to our story database in the video table. Finally, we mark the story as done, mission accomplished. It's like watching your digital assembly line produce its first masterpiece. Use this as a solid starting point for creating your own content. Here's my advice though. When you're building your workflows, try to stay as hands-on as possible. I've seen a huge quality difference between just letting the automations run wild versus keeping some control, and making sure you're actually happy with those images before processing them further. Don't get swept up in all the AI can do everything for you hype. In this community, we're focused on building sustainable income, which means we need to prioritize quality over quantity. I've watched so many channels crash and burn because people get tired of seeing the same cookie-cutter content over and over again. Here's the thing. It's better to take your time and create one piece of really good quality content than to pump out 10 mediocre ones. That quality approach is what's going to maintain your audience, keep them coming back, and ultimately provide you with that solid passive income stream you're after. Slow and steady wins the race, not the content factory approach. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you found this helpful or it sparked some ideas for your own automation journey, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps more productivity enthusiasts discover these time-saving techniques. Until next time, keep automating the boring stuff. I'll see you in the next video.